Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to another edition of APAC Dialogue. Our guest today is Tracy Reinhold. He's a CISO and president of Everbridge, and he will talk about the impact of critical event management and how organizations are strategizing to mitigate the challenges of this critical event management and how they are benchmarking overall their security resilience and what are the benefits of those benchmarks. Before we start, just a brief introduction. APAC News Network, we are a media organization headquartered out of Noida with a pan-India presence and also presence across Southeast Asia and the Middle East. And we have focus on technology deployment across governments, healthcare, education, BFSI, manufacturing, and overall technology deployment within the startups also. So, without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Tracy and ask him if he can take us through an update on the portfolio of solutions and services from Everbridge and maybe talk us a little about the use cases of these solutions, probably the public alarm solution that you have and the other principal solutions. What are the use cases? Over to you, Tracy.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. A couple of things. Let's talk first about the solutions that Everbridge offers. So Everbridge is a critical event management company. And what that means is that anything that impacts an organization's ability to continue to perform optimally is where we come into play. I'll give you an example first in the private sector, and then I will talk a little bit about public warning and how we deploy that capability globally. So first, let's talk about what Everbridge offers. Everbridge offers the ability for an organization to recover quickly from a disruption. Now, the thing about Everbridge is that it is risk and threat agnostic. It doesn't matter what the disruption is. For example, it could be a tsunami, it could be a hurricane, it could be criminal activity, it could be an IT outage. All of those things impact an organization's ability to maintain revenue and to generate revenue. So the faster you can recover from those types of events, the faster you can return to revenue. And that's really where we focus on the corporate side of things. In the corporate space, we want to be able to take risk intelligence and overlay that on assets that matter to the organization. And by assets, we're talking about buildings and people. So the things that the organization owns and the people that the organization cares about. So when you think about duty of care for employees, part of that duty of care includes keeping those people safe and out of harm's way. So if you have an asset that you care about, you can actually polygon that with technology and then overlay threat information so that you could determine whether or not there's an anticipated disruption to that business. Now, obviously, the plan is to use that risk intelligence to aggregate and deconflict it so that you can potentially get ahead of those threats and mitigate them before they manifest. That being said, it's important to understand that you can't be right all the time. So there are some events that are going to occur, and then you as an organization need to be able to recover from them. What we do at Everbridge is we help to automate that recovery process through mass notification and through visualization of the threat. Both of those things are critical when you're trying to manage a critical event. Once again, it doesn't matter what the critical event is, if it's a cyber attack, if it's terrorism, if it's crime, if it's weather, if it's supply chain disruption. All of those things impact the business's ability to sustain itself. So by overlaying threat information on those assets that you care about, you can actually then automate mass notification to the employees impacted in those zones so that they can either seek shelter or avoid an area of potential disruption. The other part of this is also maintaining a robust communication strategy inside of an organization, because you need to communicate with the C-suite and with your board, but you also need to communicate with your crisis management team and with your impacted employees. Now, all of those communications are going to be different. You're not going to tell the C-suite and the board the same thing you're going to tell your crisis response team. The degree of granularity necessary for the response team is not necessary for senior leadership. The same thing is true about impacted employees. Now, the beauty of the platform is that it allows you to communicate with all of those groups simultaneously. What it does is it disseminates that information in very rapid form through multimodal communication, so that you can ensure that everybody that is impacted or has a need to know has the information that they need to make informed decisions. Now, some of those communications you may want to automate. For example, if you have a tropical storm that reaches a certain level, you may design the platform so that it automatically notifies the employees in the impacted area without human intervention. What that does is accelerate the ability to communicate with those employees in near real time. That allows them to seek shelter when they need to. So it takes the decision making out of that process, which sometimes slows the delivery of communications. Now, other things you may want to disseminate manually. It's more complex. You don't want that to be automatically disseminated. The platform gives you the ability to pick and choose how you want to disseminate that information, so that it's received at the right time by the right people. All of these things are important because not all crises are the same and not all people receive information the same way. Yes.
Uh, in fact, it's fascinating what you were saying, and maybe much of this was tested in the last couple of years during the pandemic when a lot of organizations were working from home, working from anywhere kind of environment where security itself was a challenge, and the assets that you were talking about they were stretched to the maximum possible. So, how did you cope up during that time, and how effectively sort of the solution that you are talking about was being leveraged during these last 2 years?
Sure. So that's actually a great use case for the platform. Technology has enabled us to provide better duty of care for employees. So before the pandemic, everybody basically worked in the office. And it was fairly simple to provide them with the information they needed. They were in the office. During the pandemic, and actually since the pandemic, not everybody is coming to the office and not everybody's working at home. To your point, they are working from anywhere and not necessarily their home. So technology allows us to geolocate their locations and then overlay threat information wherever they happen to be in the world. Because employees have an expectation that the organization will inform them of things that are going to adversely impact them. This technology allows you to do that globally. So if you have somebody who is normally, say, in Singapore, but has decided to go to Goa for an extended holiday, but work during that holiday, we can then use the dynamic location services from their phone or their IP address on their laptop to determine where they are and whether there's an impact area that will affect them as an employee. This has been huge for companies, especially companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees. Those folks are scattered all over the world, and this gives them an opportunity to actually provide that duty of care by leveraging the platform and leveraging technology in order to protect the employees who are the ones that actually make the business successful. So this is an example where technology and the Everbridge platform has actually accelerated an organization's ability to protect their employees regardless of where they are. This was used extensively during the pandemic by multiple organizations around the world, and it continues to be used today because Post-pandemic, it's become more of a hybrid workforce. So not everybody is coming to the office, but that expectation of duty of care still exists. So the technology and the platform from Everbridge allows organizations to continue to protect their employees as they work from anywhere. This is a great use case for the platform, and it's a great use, and it's a great explanation of why technology is changing the way security is handled globally. So let's shift just for a minute and talk a little bit about public warning. Public warning or early warning are capabilities that Everbridge has deployed globally, including in India, Singapore, and Australia. So just as an example, there are some coastal states in India that use the Everbridge early warning system for tsunamis. Now, what we do in that case is we will white label, what we call white label that technology so that it comes out from the government. But it's actually Everbridge's technology, once again, through multimodal communications capabilities that informs the citizenry of potential disruptions to their lives. Now, this technology is used all over the world, and it's used, and Everbridge provides that to multiple countries around the globe. And it's used so that these countries can actually protect their citizens in a way that they were not able to do before. So we do it in Germany, we do it in the Nordics, we do it in Iceland and South America, we do it in India, we do it in Singapore and other countries around the world. We also use it in cities within countries. So sometimes a city will want to have an extended ability to communicate with their employees or with their citizens. Everbridge is the platform that those cities, those municipalities choose because it is a robust capability and it has a 99.99 uptime. That's really important when you're thinking about public warning. Public warning or early warning, it has to be able to function, and it has to be able to function regardless of the disruption. And that's why multimodal communication is so important, because if some of the power grid is down, we still need to be able to communicate with those employees regardless of what they're doing. So early warning or public warning is a huge part of the Everbridge mission, because remember, at the end of the day, Everbridge is focused on keeping people safe and keeping businesses running. And we put keeping people safe first intentionally, because people are what make organizations resilient. And in order to have a resilient organization, you have to have resilient people. Resilient people are the ones that we can look after as corporate employers or as countries or cities, because that makes them safe, it makes them productive, and it makes them secure in where they live, regardless of where that might be. So in that respect, we feel a very strong sense of mission when it comes to protecting people. And it doesn't matter where those people are or what they are doing for the company or for the country. We want to make sure that they get the right communications and the right capabilities to recover from business disruptions faster.
However, when you are talking about people, I understand the point, but say different people are involved in different business processes, and the whole thing is very disparate. It's a very heterogeneous kind of people are involved in different processes, and when you are talking about automating the system, then you have to achieve some level of homogeneity on that. Otherwise, the things might not work very properly. Sort of. So, how do you manage that?
So a couple of ways. So one of the biggest challenges with communicating with people is that they actually open it or pay attention to it. Right. So that's a huge problem. So what we do is we use what we call country short codes when we disseminate information, so that if you are in New Zealand, it will come from a New Zealand number. If you are in Austria, it comes from an Austrian number. This is so that we can tailor that so that it's a number that is recognized by the person as not being spam or something they don't want to pay attention to. This is really important. We also use it, we have multiple language capabilities, because not everybody speaks the same language. So oftentimes the ability to disseminate information in a language that resonates with the person is really important. You don't want to disseminate information to, say, New Zealand that's in Swahili because they won't understand the message. So making sure that it resonates with the intended recipient is important. That's where country short codes come in from an identification perspective, and it's also delivered in a native language as opposed to having to be Google translated. Because as you know, sometimes that doesn't always translate the way that we would like it to translate. So what we've done is we've taken great pains to make sure that the way that we communicate threat information and the way that we provide mass notification to employees is a way that will be readily received by the recipient and not something that they have to try to decipher. So I would say that it's not so much homogeneous as it is multifaceted, because it allows that organization to disseminate to their employees wherever they are in the world in the language of that part of the world. So let's just say that you are an Indian company, but you have offices in Europe or the United States. You're going to want to disseminate that in different languages to make sure that the employees are aware and that they can read it. So we take all of that into consideration. When we deliver the platform to an organization, the organization decides how they want to use it. We provide the technology. They provide the use case, if you will, for what the problem they're trying to solve. It's not Everbridge's place to tell an organization, this is what you need to solve for. Organizations know what their challenges are. Our job is to provide the technology and the expertise to help them solve those problems they identify.
So normally, typically, though you're clearly mentioning it's a prerogative of the organization to how they deploy it, but traditionally, in these business disruption processes by any organization or any other entity, how do they sort of one deploy the whole thing when there is a certain critical event, and more importantly what I was trying to understand, are there any parameters or matrices to benchmark when things become critical, that level of criticality, how do you benchmark that?
So a couple of ways. First, let's talk about general benchmarking as it relates to resilience. Right. So resilience is the ability to identify and recover quickly from a disruption. Everbridge actually offers a certification to companies that we will take and benchmark them against their peers to see how organizationally resilient they are. So what that means is you're taking all things into consideration, a horizontal integration in an organization that shows what are the critical capabilities and how quickly can they recover if those capabilities are disrupted. That's then taken. So if you're a financial services company, for example, that would be benchmarked against other financial services companies to see whether or not they can do that. But during a critical event, one of the things that we can do is log the responses. So it's not just one-way communication, it's two-way communication to the employee or to the team that you're trying to get to address a problem. So what that does is it creates a log that shows you how quickly the organization was able to complete their tasks or those that could not complete their tasks. What this does is gives you the metrics that you need to have continuous improvement in your organization. So let's say, for example, you are a port and you need to shut down a specific part of the port, which includes 3 different teams. All 3 of the teams get the information that they need to make the informed decision. 2 of them do it very quickly. 1 of them either doesn't do it or does it incredibly slow. So what that does is by logging that into the system, at the end of the event, you can go back and do a post-mortem on that event and say, these 2 teams did really well. Here's why. This team did not. Let's focus on bringing this team up to speed so that they can be better the next time we have that. The other thing that you want to be able to determine is how quickly can you get information and how accurate is it? right? So we all know that social media is very fast, but it may not be very accurate. So sometimes law enforcement or government is very accurate, but not as fast. So what you want to do is to take multiple streams of information. And then what we do is that we use human analysts after the machine learning dissects the information and gives it a final scrub, because sometimes the machines don't get that so what moment. Why does this matter? So sometimes our human analysts can do that. So what we strive for, one of the metrics that we use, is how quickly can we disseminate and how accurate is it? It's because the veracity of information is really important when you're trying to make informed decisions. You don't want to make a decision off a Twitter feed if it's not been validated by something else. So we want to have authentication of the information, and then we keep track of that inside of our organization to determine where we actually can improve as well. Our mission is to continuously improve the process so that the capability is available for companies, and that's not anything they need to worry about. So, there's two sides of that metrics piece. There's internal to Everbridge, and then there's the company itself while they are responding to a critical event. All critical events are different. All companies reply or relate to them differently and respond to them differently. So by keeping a log of the events that happened during the critical event, you can actually go back afterwards when things have calmed down, and start to review how well you did. The other metric that you want to be able to use in any critical event, regardless of the technology, is you have to conduct exercises during times of calm, right? You cannot start to deploy a capability if you've never used it before. So exercising is really important for organizations, and exercising that involves senior leadership is also important. The other piece about exercising is do not create exercises that make you look good. You want to do exercises that identify deficiencies and then create corrective action plans so that you can remediate that problem before you actually have a crisis. This is really important, because if you don't do that, when you do have a critical event, you will be unprepared to address it.
Great. Taking a cue from what you have said, this importance of these exercises, what I would like to understand is, so typically the conversations that you do, that may be a public entity or an organization, it cannot be only with the CISO or the security head, but with all the business process heads. So how are the nature of those conversations? That is one part. And the second is, when you are emphasized on the authenticity and accuracy of the information, now there are different business processes, different kind of organizations, and they have their own regulations.
Mhm.
And so a lot of these compliances which you need to conform to. So how is that managed again in this context?
So first, let's talk about how you deploy and why it's a cross-functional capability. All right. So what we will do is we will sit down with the organization and talk with them about what the problem is they're trying to solve. Maybe it's a regulatory requirement for a financial services company. Maybe it is a threat environment for a construction company. We don't know, right? So we rely on our customers to tell us the challenge they're trying to solve for. And we try to involve as many people as we can in the organization. Oftentimes that involves the chief risk officer, who reports generally to the board on a risk and compliance perspective. Everbridge is ISO certified, we're GDPR compliant, and we continually process through our compliance area about how we need to continuously improve, not just from a US perspective, but from a global perspective. So, for example, if we were solely a US company, we wouldn't worry about GDPR. We wouldn't worry about data center requirements in Australia. But because we are a global company, we're continuously looking through our general counsel and our head of compliance about what those requirements are globally so that we can effectively service the customers that we have, regardless of where they are in the world. Regulatory compliance is a really important part of making sure that organizations are in compliance with the local requirements wherever they happen to be. And as you know, compliance changes across the globe, and it continually evolves. So what we do is we work very hard with our legal counsel office and our compliance team to make sure that we are conversant in the compliance requirements in different parts of the world so that we can make sure that what we deliver to the customer is actually usable and answers the questions from their perspective. So we want to make sure that we involve the general counsel, we involve procurement, we involve the chief risk officer's office, we involve security. You know, it's if you look at it, when you look about organizational resilience, which is really what we're empowering, it's not a security function, it's not a risk function, it's not a compliance function, it's a company function that crosses all parts of the organization to make sure that that organization can operate efficiently and effectively. So in that way, we try to make sure that what we deliver to the customer answers the needs that they have. And the thing is that every customer is different, right? Every organization is different. Every organization has different challenges and different problems. That's why I say that our platform is risk and threat agnostic, because it's not specifically designed for cyber mitigation or for weather mitigation. It's a recovery tool that allows organizations to establish and maintain resilience and enhance that resilience post business disruption. Does that help?
Yes, yes. That's great. So let's touch a bit, talked about the technology. Let's talk a bit about the business aspect of it. You mentioned that in different geographies, often it's white labeled. How is the overall go-to-market strategy, and what are the initiatives accordingly that you plan?
Sure. So on a go-to-market perspective, what we look at is identifying specific challenges that are faced by organizations, and then tailoring our solution to those. So we do a couple of things on a go-to-market. We have a fairly a robust digital presence where we will work online and social media to make sure that our message gets out. We also provide thought leadership in the security space globally, where we will conduct resilience, what we call resilience road shows, where we invite organizations to come in and learn about the capabilities, but more than that, to share with each other their own challenges and perspectives. Because what we have discovered in our go-to-market is that we need to learn from our customers. Otherwise, we are not relevant to the needs that they're trying to address. So we look at different verticals that we specialize in, whether it's retail, manufacturing, public safety, whole country alerting, and tailor a marketing campaign specifically to each one of those. Because if you're dealing with a financial services company, their challenges are going to be different than a manufacturing facility. So understanding the nuances and understanding how you would market to each one of those is really important. So the other part of it is branding. How do we brand the company? Because brand becomes critical when it comes to obtaining and maintaining market share. So you want to make sure that you have a recognizable brand. So we are starting to really push that globally. We have a new chief marketing officer who is amazing. And he and his team are putting together a strategy for 2023 that will resonate globally and reinforce the capabilities of the organization to establish, maintain, and enhance resilience. Remember, Everbridge started as a mass communications company post 9/11. But in the 20 years that we've been around, we have changed with the needs of organizations globally. First, it was mass communications, then it was threat visualization, and now it's recovery from business disruptions. So what we've done is continue to improve the process and the technology and bring new capabilities to bear. So from a go-to-market perspective, we want to highlight those new capabilities so that organizations and entities around the world understand that they will have a one-stop shop for all of their resilience requirements. And that's really where we're headed from our go-to-market perspective.
And which are some of the verticals that you witness maximum traction from?
So it depends on the corporate side. We do retail, we do manufacturing, we do financial services, and we do general services. So basically, any business that's operating today. So let me back up a minute. Every company today is a tech company, right? Regardless of what you do for a living, you are a tech company. We actually have media organizations that are customers. So if you think about 100 years ago, if you were building furniture, it was a very manual process. Today, there are a lot of CNC machines and computer assisted design technology. So OT becomes an issue in addition to IT. All of those can be compromised. All of those can be if issue. So when we look at verticals, what we look at is there are certain commonalities amongst all organizations, right? They all have human resources. They all have IT. They all have compliance. They all have legal, regardless of what the end product is, if you're a retailer or if you're a manufacturer or if you're a financial services company, right? All of those things exist. So how do we synergize those to make sure that organizations can respond faster to those disruptions, regardless of what their core business is? And this is why we rely on the customer to tell us what their challenges are and then create a bespoke solution to that challenge that helps them accelerate their recovery from a business disruption. So it's about listening to the customer. It's about listening to the entity, regardless of what it is. It could be a 10,000 person company. It could be a 2 million person company. Everybody's challenges are different. The platform is scalable so that it doesn't matter the size of the company or what the company produces. It's about recovery and it's about returning to revenue. And that's where we really accelerate their capabilities.
Great. So I'll just conclude with looking forward, maybe the next 4 5 quarters. From an Everbridge perspective, what are going to be your key focus areas and key initiatives that you plan to undertake?
Sure. So one of the things that we want to do is to accelerate our product delivery process. So our product roadmap that we have. So as you know, in technology, product roadmap is really, really important. So the coordination between the chief product officer and the head of engineering is really important. We want to make sure that we streamline that going forward. We've just hired on a new chief product officer here at Everbridge. So we're very excited about his starting. And then we're also going to work on enhancing profitability, right? So we want our adjusted EBITDA to go up so that we are well placed in the market. These are things that have all been discussed with the Wall Street analysts. We just had an analyst day the other day, last week, which was incredibly successful. And so really, if you think about that, we're going to focus on our product roadmap, on enhancing brand and reputation, with our go-to-market strategy, and to expand our global footprint to areas that we feel are needing a good recovery capability. So it's not, while we were headquartered in the US, we are a global company. For example, we have 200 employees in India today. And obviously, Rupert, who was helping to coordinate this, is one of them. And we also have employees all over the world. And the idea is to make sure that we are a globally local company, if that makes sense. So we're a global company, but we act locally. So we have local employees who understand the culture and the organizations that we're trying to help in their recovery journey. So that's kind of what we're looking at for the next 4 or 5 quarters is roadmap, adjusted EBITDA increase, increased profitability, and the development of new capabilities as they become necessary as identified by our customers.
Okay. Last thing for our viewers, you talked about 200 employees in India. Can you talk a little bit about the operations that you have in India?
Sure. So we obviously have sales in India, right? We have sales teams in India that look at specific like telecom. They'll be looking at those types of areas in any area that can benefit from technology. We also have a partner organization in India where we want to facilitate indirect sales. So partnering with Indian organizations to make sure that we are adequately addressing the needs of the companies in India from an Indian perspective. We have some engineering folks in India, and we also have our security operations center in India. So that takes care of all of our cyber that reports to our CISO. So lots of activities in India. I think our most exciting part is our partner team and our marketing team. Because that goes to our ability to increase our brand recognition in India. And that will also help to accelerate organizations in India in their journey to recovery as India continues on their path that they're on today. So I know, for example, that India's GNP just passed the UK. The whole country is now 5G. These are huge advancements. So it provides a platform that Everbridge can leverage to help organizations in India accelerate their growth and to recover from disruptions quicker, just like we would anywhere else in the world.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for it's early morning. You're in the East Coast. Where are you located?
Correct. Yes, I'm on the East Coast.
Okay, so still it's quite early. Thanks for taking time out.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.